Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen, whenever and wherever you're listening to us. You are listening to the Caps Locks and Chair Shots podcast, a BLT&E edition of the show. My name is Ed Burkeen. I am your host, and joining me for the first time making his podcasting debut is none other than Branson. How you doing today, bud?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain. All right, today's topic, we're going to be talking about the 10 best NBA players of all time. In light of the documentary that many of you may have been seeing on ESPN over the last couple of days, we're going to talk about where Michael Jordan fits as far as in the top 10, who Branson's got, who I've got, and we're just going to see if we can come to some common ground. Branson, are you ready?
I am. Let's get this going.
All right, who is your number 10 best NBA player of all time?
My number 10 best NBA player is Wilt Chamberlain.
Okay, now we are in a lot of disagreement here because he is also in my top 10, but he is in a very different spot. My number 10 is probably one of the best forwards of all time, and we actually both got to see him play, and that's Tim Duncan. For the way he dominated the game and the way he dominated his position and the way he went about it in such a manner, Tim Duncan's my 10th greatest NBA player of all time. Why did you choose Wilt at number 10, Branson?
I chose Wilt at number 10 because I simply don't think he accomplished as much as some of the other people that I have higher up in my rankings. He only won 2 championships, and I know the rest of his accolades are impressive, but when I was ranking these, I took into account talent, which Wilt definitely had a lot of, but I also took accomplishments and the legacy they left too. And Wilt did not accomplish as much as some of the others that I have higher in my rankings, and that's why he fell to number 10 for me.
That's a pretty hot take you got going on there, bud. All right, sounds good. Give me your number 9.
I have Shaquille O'Neal at number 9.
Shaq did not make my top 10. Why did you choose the big fella?
Because mainly the legacy he left was incredible, and he was the most physically dominant player during his time in the NBA, and he just had some great accomplishments during his career. He was a 4-time champ and the 3-time Finals MVP. He won the MVP, and he left a big mark on the league, and they actually even changed rules because of him. He definitely made my list because of the accolades he got and just the legacy he left and how dominant he was during his time.
Fair enough. You may have talked me into putting Shaq in the top 10, but one thing about the NBA, you can never deny it's entertaining, and Shaq may have been one of the most entertaining basketball players of all time.
Well,
So
definitely, I definitely agree with you there.
maybe he's my 10B, or maybe number 11 on that spot. My
That's it.
number 9 player is none other than Larry Bird.
Okay.
Just for what he did for the state of Indiana, and then how the rivalry him and Magic had. It brought basketball. It was the biggest thing between Kareem and Jordan that there was that kept basketball interesting. And it kept a rivalry between two cities on opposite ends of the country together and made it strong. It brought the Celtics back from the Red Auerbach days, and it made basketball fun during the mid 80s. All right, Branson, we're up to number 8. Who is your number 8th player?
My number 8 player is actually Larry Bird.
Oh, very well. Now, why did you put him there?
Just the reasons you said. He did leave a great legacy for himself, and he definitely had a big impact on the game. But it came down to he just didn't accomplish as much as other people higher on the list. But I definitely agree with everything you said, and he was a huge factor in the NBA. And he was one of the reasons the NBA was so great to watch during that era in the 80s with him and the Lakers rivalry. But I definitely thought that he was worthy of the top 10, but that's why I didn't put him higher.
Fair enough. My number 8 is actually a guy that we just mentioned quite heavily, and that's Magic Johnson.
Okay.
I think if his career goes a little bit longer and he doesn't deal with the health issues that he has, he gets much higher on this list. He is one of the many Lakers that it could be on your all-time team. It could anchor that all-time team He had a mixture of size, speed, athleticism, and he could shoot the basketball. And for everything I said about Larry Bird, you can say about Magic Johnson. So he was my number 8 player. Who did you have at number 7, Branson?
Well, once again, this is happening. I had Magic Johnson at number 7.
Well, I'll tell you what. Actually, before I added somebody to move everybody back a slot, I had Magic and Bird at 7 and 8, just like you did. I'm not going to ask you why Magic, because I assume we're pretty much on the same wavelength here. So let's move to number 6. Who do you have?
My number 6 player is Tim Duncan.
Okay. Talk to me about Timmy.
I just believe that I know you had him lower, and he definitely deserves to be in the top 10. He probably is the most accomplished power forward of all time. The legacy he and the Spurs left was insane. If you will, they were kind of like the Patriots of the NBA. Just they were always winning, and if they didn't win the championship, they were always right there contending for it. He was just a winner, and that shows with his 5 championships, and he won 2 MVPs and 3 Finals MVPs. He just had a huge impact on his team and the game, and was a winner his whole career.
Obviously, with less cheating than the Patriots have done.
Yeah.
My number, let's see, what are we at? Number 6 is a local player, came right out of the OVAC right here in West Virginia, Ohio, and that is John Havlicek.
Okay, that's interesting.
He was one of the stars of the Celtics in the 50s and 60s. You go through the OVAC Museum, something that I know you have been to and something I actually covered as part of my journalism career. He's everywhere.
Yes, he is.
He is as big of a star that the NBA had during that time from this area anywhere, and he could back it up with his play. He was a 3-sport athlete in high school, and he did everything well. You ask many players who played around that time, and John Havlicek was the class of the league, and some say his brother was better if his brother didn't get caught up in legal stuff too. But actually, I'm thinking of somebody else there. But yeah, Havlicek is my number 6. We're into the top 5 now, Branson. Who do you have at number 5?
My number 5 player is Bill Russell.
Oh, I'm sorry. We are at number 6 now. That was 7. I apologize. We're at number 6. So who do you have at 6?
I already answered that question. I said Tim Duncan.
Okay. I'm really confused. Now we're at number 5. I think. Okay. I don't know. I'm lost. Who do you got at number 5? 10.
My number 5 player is Bill Russell.
Hey! Why Bill Russell? Because we're on the same wavelength. I have Bill Russell at number 5 as well. I actually have a tie at 5 with Bill Russell. But Bill Russell's also my number 5. So where do you have Bill Russell at 5?
Well, I know people usually don't think of this as being so high because he played way back in the day in that era when most people don't think about. And although he didn't earn a ton of individual accolades as far as all NBA teams like maybe others did, how do you not put the guy who won 11 championships and 5 MVPs in the top 5? He was the original, he owned the NBA when he played. He kept a lot of players from winning multiple championships, and just that, he created the Celtics dynasty. And just the way that he won and owned the NBA during his time playing in it, I felt that he had to go into the top 5 with 11 championships.
Fair enough. He was also one of my players at number 5. My other player was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Okay.
For just the scoring prowess that he had, not to mention, he was in the movie Airplane. That gives you some kudos right there. But he just seemed, and maybe it was his height, maybe it's because he was that tall, he just seemed head and shoulders above everybody else, especially at the center position. He was one of the first guys that could come out and leave the lane and still shoot the basketball. Granted, his arms were so long, he could stand at the free throw line and pretty much drop it into the top of the basket, but still.
That skyhook was something to be reckoned with.
Exactly. It revolutionized the game. Granted, we don't see a lot of it now, mainly because nobody else can really do it to his stellarness, I guess, for lack of a better term. But yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is my second number 5. All right, we're in the top 4. Who you got?
Kobe Bryant at 4.
We are so much on the same wavelength.
I,
Talk to me about Kobe.
I put Kobe at 4 because he was a game changer. He left a great legacy, and he did win 5 championships. He would have been higher on my list besides he only won 1 MVP, and the list of my top 3 is getting up there, and they're really racking up the awards up there. And I just feel like if he would have accomplished more individually, he would have been higher. But I also knew he had to be high on my list in the top 5 because of the legacy he left. The Black Mamba was unreal. He would make unbelievable shots. He was clutch. He had that killer instinct, and he was. You didn't think about the NBA without thinking about Kobe Bryant during his time at playing, and just because of the impact he had and the legacy he left, I have put him at number 4.
Well, I think another thing when you talk about Kobe Bryant, and especially when you talk about any player, that their impact on the game, is you look what happens when they leave us, when they pass away, and how they're remembered. And I don't mean how they are remembered as in their legacy. I mean how they are remembered by other people, how they are remembered by the league, and such the outpouring, the mourning when we lost Kobe Bryant due to that helicopter accident. To see that outpouring of support and anguish and pain and love and just all of it together, that truly shows how much of an impact any player or any person has in their particular field. And Kobe's impact cannot be denied.
This country doesn't always agree on everything, but everyone came together and agreed and mourned when Kobe died. That showed how many people were impacted by him, and how many people were devastated by that loss. That alone shows you the tremendous impact he had on not only the league, but everyone in the world.
Right. All right. We're into our top 3.
Yes,
Who's
we are.
number 3, Branson?
I have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at number 3.
Okay, fair enough.
I put him there because although some people might put him lower, I felt he had to go there. To start with, he's a 6-time champ, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he has the most MVPs with 6 as well. And he, like we talked about, he was so dominant during his time in the league, and that shows by the fact he was the all-time leading scorer. And he was unstoppable, and he could score about any way he needed to, and he dominated the league. And he won one with the Bucks, but then he went to the Lakers and helped build that Lakers dynasty even more. And he was just an unreal player. And because of the legacy he left and all the accolades he gathered himself, I felt he had to be in my top 3.
Hey, fair enough. I completely agree with you. My number 3 is something that's going to be a little bit controversial, and I have a feeling you got him at 2, and that's LeBron James. And the only reason he is number 3 is because he's not done yet. I am thoroughly not convinced that he doesn't have at least 1 or 2 more championships in him. He may not be the guy that can go out there and score 50 points a night. He may not be the guy that can take over a series. He may be moving into that elder statesman kind of role where he's letting Anthony Davis kind of take the lead there in LA. But how many finals did he get to in a row? I mean,
8 or 9. It was unreal.
You look at what he did, especially in the playoffs, and especially with the people he had in the playoffs. He made Anderson Varejao an NBA champion, and not a lot of people can do that. I mean, he made Dellavedova a household name, and not a lot of people can do that. And he did it in more than one place. He went from Cleveland to Miami, didn't miss a beat, and then went back to Cleveland and didn't miss a beat. And he's one of them guys where if you take him off the team he's on in his prime and you put him on the worst team you can imagine, that team's going to the playoffs.
Absolutely.
There's nobody else that you can really say that. Yeah, Kobe had that superstar caliber player, but if you take Kobe off the Lakers and you put him on the Milwaukee Bucks circa 2002, the Bucks are still a middling team. Kobe can't shoot. I mean, he tried, but Kobe can't shoot the ball 90 times a night.
Uh-huh.
LeBron Not only was a superstar player, but he made people around him great. And that's why he's my number 3.
There are twice in LeBron's career where he took, in my opinion, rosters that did not even come close to matching up with other great rosters and took them to the championship. And that would be in 2007, his first year in the finals, and then the year that the first year that Kyrie Irving was out of Cleveland. That was twice alone in those finals runs that he took players that no one would hardly know about or think of and took them to the finals. So that alone just speaks tremendously about his talent. And just like you said, he's all around. He's an all-around great player, and in my opinion, although he hasn't accomplished as much as other people may have so far, he's not done yet. But because he's all-around so physically dominant, and in my opinion, the most all-around skilled player in the history of the game, that's why he's at number 2 for me.
Okay, all right. Well, that answers that question.
Yes.
Are you ready to kind of get mad at me?
Yes, I am.
My number 2 is Michael Jordan.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I know this is going to cause a lot of outrage, and this isn't just to get people to listen. I need you to hear me out on this. Michael Jordan is a fantastic player. Michael Jordan is the second best player to ever play basketball in the history of basketball. He's a once-in-a-lifetime talent. He made basketball great. Without Michael Jordan, basketball doesn't get into prime time. Without Michael Jordan, the NBA doesn't go to 30 teams. Without Michael Jordan, you don't see basketball in Vancouver. You don't see basketball in Memphis. You don't see basketball in several places. You see maybe even talks of league contraction. Before Jordan, the NBA was being aired. The playoffs were being aired on a taped delay after things like Saturday Night Live. Now, they're a billion-dollar industry where multiple networks are fighting tooth and nail to air games that nobody cares about between the Knicks and the Nets. That nobody's going to watch outside of New York, but it's basketball, so everybody's going to watch. Michael Jordan did that. Michael Jordan launched a shoe line that is one of the most successful shoe brands of all time. He should be the logo of the league. Say what you want, Jerry West, hell of a guy. You know, there's a push for Kobe Bryant to be the logo, but Jumpman is the unofficial logo of the NBA, and it's not even close. You know,
I agree.
Everybody talks about. I remember growing up, a lot of my friends, all they wanted was Jordans. And I grew up in St. Louis, so Air Force Ones were a thing, but everybody wanted a Jordan sneaker, and he did that. You know, growing up in St. Louis, we didn't have a basketball team. The Bulls were in the state of Illinois. I lived in Illinois. So the Bulls were it.
Yeah.
When Michael came back from retirement, everything exploded all over the state. It was socially acceptable to wear a basketball jersey in 35-degree weather and nothing underneath it to school because it was a Michael Jordan jersey. That's how big he was. That being said, he's still my number 2. Is he your number 1?
Yes, he is, and I put him there just for the reasons you said, basically to say it shorter. The legacy he made and the way he impacted the game and really brought basketball back to fame and popularity. And just kind of similar to Kobe Bryant in this way, he had that killer instinct, and he was clutch, and he impacted the game. Plus, I love the fact that he threw a Defensive Player of the Year award in there, and he really just in the dunk championships, he was just insane to watch, and he made the league super entertaining. And the legacy he left, he has accomplished more than others. That's why he goes as high. I just feel like I feel like Michael Jordan has to be number 1 at this point in time.
Fair enough. I'm not going to argue with you. My number 1's a little bit different, and I'll explain why here in a minute. But let's talk about some of the players that didn't necessarily make our top 10. And okay. I'm going to play a little game with you, and you're going to tell me where these guys played. All right? Here's the first one, and it's one that goes all the way back. Bob Pettit.
I do believe a name. Bob Pettit played for the Hawks, didn't he?
Yes, and what is special about Bob Pettit?
I couldn't tell you.
He was the captain of the St. Louis Hawks, the only team to beat the vaulted Boston Celtics during their massive run in the 50s and 60s. The Hawks were the
Okay.
only team to win the championship, and St. Louis doesn't have an NBA team, but we do have an NBA championship. We are one of the few cities that have a major championship in all 4 sports. How about Dr. J, Julius Erving?
Oh, he started out in the ABA and played for teams there, but he's most known for his time in the NBA with playing for those Sixers in the 70s and 80s.
Ready for a layup here?
I am.
Charles Barkley.
He played for the 76ers. The Suns were his best year. He was there for a season and won the MVP, and they went to the finals but lost to Michael Jordan, and then he ended his career with the Houston Rockets.
There you go. You know what? I feel bad about that. That was just horrible. That was horrible. Elgin Baylor. How you feel about Elgin there, bud?
Oh, he was a good player. He most definitely was. He played for the Lakers back in that Bill Russell era with Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain. And he could have had even a better career than he did if it wouldn't have had to have health problems.
How about Bob Cousy?
He played for the Celtics, didn't he?
I believe he did, yes. Let's go. You already said Jerry West. How about George Mikan? Let's go old school with George Mikan.
Now, Ed, first I have to tell you, I very much toyed with the idea of putting George Mikan in my top 10.
I did the same thing. Talk to me about it. Why?
He was the big man to start the trend of big men in the NBA. He dominated when he played. Of course, he played way back in the day, many, many years ago, but the impact he had in the game, I mean, every basketball team still does the Mikan drill at practice.
Yeah, being a coach's kid, how much do you hate that drill?
Oh, I loved it. I'm a post player. It's the post drill.
How about the Big O, Oscar Robertson?
He was a fantastic player, mainly known for his time with the Bucks, and he was the Russell Westbrook of that era. He was the first player to average a triple-double, and he just had unreal talent.
Okay, let's move on. Isaiah Thomas. Let's go with a little Detroit action.
Absolutely. He was a fantastic player as well. I am all about the story and just the attitude of those bad boy Pistons. The team that they play with a swagger, and that showed when they won those 2 championships. That was a good team right there.
All right, let's see who's next on the list. Moses Malone, another ABA.
Yep, and then when he came to the NBA, he played for teams such as, he's primarily known for his time with the Sixers as well, winning that championship with Dr. J, but he also spent some time on the Rockets as well.
How about another guy? This one's more mainly from my childhood, Patrick Ewing.
Absolutely. He was another staple name of the NBA in the 90s, playing for the Knicks. And if I remember right, he was actually the first number 1 pick under the current lottery system they have.
That is correct. How about Hakeem Olajuwon?
Another guy who was right outside of my top 10. Towards the bottom of my list, it took some thinking, and he was close. He had a huge impact on the game as well, and he was actually drafted above Michael Jordan in 1984. And I can't say the Rockets would regret that decision because it still worked out for him. He is the all-time NBA blocks leader, and he won 2 championships and a Defensive Player of the Year, 2 MVPs, I believe, and just had a huge impact on the game. He is a phenomenal player.
All right, fair enough. Let's go with, how about a duo, John Stockton and Karl Malone? I believe Stockton's the leader in assists, and Malone's got to be up there in points, too.
Yeah, and Malone is actually the all-time leader in free throws made, too.
Wow, there you go. Now,
go ahead.
Karl Malone finished his career with LA. How weird did that look?
It looked weird.
It's one of those things. Excuse me. Go ahead.
It's kind of like the equivalent of seeing Michael Jordan in a Wizards jersey or Tom Brady in a Buccaneers jersey. It looks different. I understand why he went there. He was trying to get a championship, but Karl Malone and John Stockton together were an unreal duo. And honestly, it pains me that they finished their careers without a championship because I would have liked to see them get at least one. They were, toward the end of the 90s, they were one of the premier teams in the league to go along with the Bulls. And just that duo was unreal. John Stockton is the all-time leader in assists and steals, which speaks volumes about him being a true and talented point guard. And just back in the 90s, if you didn't have Michael Jordan, you had to have a good big man to be successful. And Karl Malone was that for the Jazz. He was a super talented power forward to play for the Jazz, and he helped make that team great. So those are two players I think very highly of.
Well, I'll tell you what, I didn't have them on my list of players that I wanted to talk about. But you're talking about Stockton, brought both of them into my mind, and they're another duo that played a lot together, and that is Dirk Nowitzki and Steve Nash.
Absolutely.
Because I think they're the John Stockton and Karl Malone of the 2000s. You look at what Nash did. Nash was a must-see player, and he was probably my favorite player growing up after Jordan because of the sheer... You weren't sure where the basketball was going because it could go anywhere at any time with Steve Nash. And then you have Dirk, who is probably one of the most consistent players in the history of players. You knew what you were going to get from Dirk Nowitzki. An ugly-ass smile and a patented fadeaway jumper kind of amalgamation of a shot that almost always went in. And the Dallas Mavericks lucked out, and Mark Cuban hit the jackpot with those two.
Yes, he did. I have a tremendous respect for both of those players. Steve Nash was a phenomenal point guard, and he came out of a class that was loaded with talent in that 1996 draft class, and he ended his career as one of the most accomplished out of those players. He was just as a point guard, the way he changed the game and the way he could pass the ball and really get an offense going, that 7 seconds or less offense was deadly. And it was because of the talent that Steve Nash brought to the table to make that team work and to have that offensive skill set. But now on to Dirk. Dirk is one of the players I have the most respect for out of any player in history. To be drafted to a team and stay there his whole career and not have some of the success that maybe players like Kobe Bryant did for their team or Michael Jordan, but he stuck it out, kept playing. He gave everything. He gave everything he had to Dallas, and he kept coming back at it with that same consistency and effort. And it paid off for him in the end when he got that championship in 2011. And although he didn't have the accomplishments, he left an impact and a legacy, not only on just the league, but that whole city and just the basketball world. And he also was part of the revolution of foreign players to make a big name for themselves in the NBA.
The European contingent coming over.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can really thank Dirk for being one of the pioneers of that. And one thing I wanted to kind of point out here, we look at a guy like David Robinson and a guy like Tim Duncan and Dirk Nowitzki, real class acts coming out of the state of Texas. And then you have the Houston Rockets. It's kind of an outlier.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right. Now, as I mentioned before, you're the son of a coach that's been with the high school that you attend for a good long while now. Let's talk a little bit about some coaches if you can. I know I'm kind of springing this on you a little bit. Who's the best coach of all time?
Phil Jackson.
Really?
It's got to be Phil Jackson. He has won championships with multiple different teams, like with making those runs with both the Lakers and the Bulls, and taking those different players. And to win that many championships is just unreal. That shows you the way he could coach and the success he had. And I think you can't put up those numbers and not be in the conversation, if not considered the greatest coach of all time.
So, I mean, he does have 11 championships, one for the thumb. That was the title of his autobiography, I believe. 2 more than a guy who I thought would be the greatest coach of all time, and that's Red Auerbach.
Red in my names too. He honestly is. He definitely was. He's someone you have to consider, but it's just my opinion that I see arguments for both. But I'm going to give the edge in that race to Phil Jackson. But I definitely see arguments for Red Auerbach.
Okay, and some notable coaches that can also kind of be in that list. You have Don Nelson, who has 1,335 wins, just ahead of Lenny Wilkens, who has 1332. Greg Popovich, an active coach, has 1222 and could possibly, depending on how good the Spurs are in the next 3 or 4 seasons, catch them. Jerry Sloan, Pat Riley, George Karl, Larry
Yes.
Brown, Bill Fitch, Red Holtzman. You got to give some love to a guy like Coach K.
Absolutely.
I mean, Mike Krzyzewski, isn't he at 2,000 wins now with Duke?
It's
It,
something like that. It's a big number.
it's something ridiculous. I mean, if he, not to mention all the gold medals that Coach K has, I think, as good as Phil Jackson and Red Auerbach were, they had players that were consistently with them. Phil Jackson capitalized on Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and Shaq and Scottie Pippen and everybody else. Coach K does it with a new set of players every year. If we're going NBA, yeah, it's probably Phil Jackson. If we're going overall basketball coach, you got to go with Coach K, right there, bud?
Yeah, I can definitely see that argument, and I would not think anyone was crazy for putting him there. I definitely see how he deserves that.
All right. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's kind of put the NBA on a back burner. I wanted to talk to you about something that just came out yesterday. The many states around this country have canceled spring sports and have canceled school for the rest of the year. You are a member of the class of 2020. How do you feel about that?
It's not good. I understand the circumstances, and I understand we have to be safe. And I'm fortunate in the fact that I was not a spring sport athlete, so that I'm not missing out on my senior spring sport season. But my heart really goes out to the people who are. You look forward to your senior season. My senior football and basketball seasons were phenomenal, and they were great experiences. And the fact that some people are going to lose that with their spring sport, it just killed me. And as far as school being canceled to begin with, it's once again I understand and I know we have to be safe and it makes sense why they're doing it, but it's not ideal to have to for the class of 2020 to have to go out like this. You think about your senior year through the whole time you're in school, and you look forward to things such as maybe your prom, your graduation, and to have that all in limbo right now, it's just an uneasy feeling, and it just brings this feeling of uncertainty. And now just seniors around the country are just waiting to figure out what's happening because no one knows what's going to happen next.
Right, right. And my heart goes out to you guys. I mean, I kind of took things for granted myself. I didn't play any sports my senior year. I played 3 years of football, a couple years of baseball, a couple years of track, and I didn't do anything my senior year. And that's one of my biggest regrets. And I just want to say, I feel for you guys. And I know it screwed up some of your FFA plans too, didn't it? You being a big FFA guy?
Yes, it did.
Yeah. But anyway, bigger and brighter things. Branson, I'm deeply impressed. Very nicely done. I hope to have you back again sometime soon. Do you have any shout outs you want to give? Parents, girlfriend, anybody?
Oh yeah, I suppose I can shout out my parents and my girlfriend. My dad has always been he quizzes me on NBA facts from time to time, just because he likes to he thinks it's just unreal how much interest I developed in the NBA from a young age, and how I just became kind of an NBA nerd and learned all the facts. But
Yeah, your dad is one of the most intense people I have ever been around. Nicest guy until the whistle blows. I'll tell you what, him and his boss up there at your high school, they can be kind of terrifying when that whistle blows. And there have only been a few times where I've been legit scared to be sitting behind a bench. And your dad scared the ever loving tar out of me at a JV game in Shadyside.
yeah, I think I was the one that he was getting the blunt of that too. Being his kid, I'm always the one that takes one for the team so he can get across the message to everyone.
Oh, no, no, no. This was, do you remember the night of the fight?
Oh yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, this was when Nick was throwing some bones underneath the net, and it was the precursor to that. And
Absolutely.
there was that, and then your cross-county rivalry over there. That head coach, after a playoff game, kind of, yeah, I've only twice skipped doing post-game interviews, and it was both those nights. So Well, anyway, Branson, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. Give my love to your family and everybody up there wearing green. And stay safe and stay healthy. Appreciate it, bud.
Hey, man. This was a blast. Thank you.
Yep. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you all for listening to the Caps Locks and Chair Shots podcast. And if you're not down with us, we got 2 words for you. Keep listening.